Hello, this is Frank Nelson from Centurion Discovery. This video covers introductory topics to the document review platform Relativity. To get started, let's go ahead and log into the application using the URL myrelativity.com. One nice thing about Relativity you may have noticed is I'm using the Google Chrome browser. And Relativity is considered a cross-browser platform, meaning you can use a number of supported platforms, i.e. Chrome, Mozilla, Safari. I'm sure there are other supported platforms out there. The take-home point is it's a HTML5 compliant application, meaning that it can be used on a number of platforms. So we're going to go ahead and enter our username like so. And we're going to log in. And the first thing we see are a series of cases that we have access to. This is all determined by the rights and permissions that you have. Presumably, if you work at a law firm, you'll see your firm's cases or your firm's cases that you have been given rights to. If you are a corporate entity, there'll be all the cases related to your corporation and so on and so forth. As you see, Relativity calls these workspaces. These could be matters, projects, cases. It's kind of the first organizing principle of Relativity. So we're going to go into the demo workspace here, Salt v. Pepper, which is the basic Relativity demo case. So before we dive in, let's take a quick look at the Relativity help system. It's a high-quality, well-written help system, which is unusual for most software. It's accessible through this drop-down menu up at the top right by your username, and go to Help. And it brings up its own browser window. And from here, you could enter a search term. Let's say we're going to look for field filtering like so. And you can check out the various topics available there. Another option is you can click on the documentation, scroll down, and it's nicely organized by topic. So let's say you're interested in searching. So the two main areas that most folks are going to be interested in are the searching topics and the review topics. Obviously, Relativity can do a lot more, but these are the two prime areas that you can go looking in. And I recommend expanding the window a little bit, and if you want to go browse through the various sections here to get an overall conceptual view of the app, go ahead and browse around there. Another helpful section is to go to the Relativity Certified User Resources. So if you go to the Resources tab and go to Documentation by User Role, it will bring you to a list of roles with resources attached to these various roles. So we're interested in just user topics, but it aggregates a lot of the major resources in the Relativity help system for the user. In particular, these videos and tutorials are really helpful. Here are a listing of videos available to help you get started. Of course, Centurion also has their own library of videos, and I encourage you to check out that selection as well. Okay, back to Relativity. So let's just talk about basic organization of the app. One of the reasons why I like Relativity so much is it keeps it very simple. Let's take a look at some of the major pieces. So on the left, we have a system of folders. This is often used to organize the document collections by a number of factors. You often see a custodian list, like so. See organizations by data type or data location. You could have sections where scanned paper are organized. This is all customizable. It can be set up by the review administrator. It's a great way to quickly go to your various document collections. The main table is your standard database grid. So each row represents a document, and what's helpful is you get these little document icons. You can see what type of file, you can quickly see what type of file you are dealing with. Then across the top, your columns are the metadata. So it could be the source of the document, it could be folder file names, it could be email style metadata that you see here, and then more subjective types of coding like responsive and privilege basis and so on and so forth. So it sets up a nice grid view of all your documents. In the lower right, you can see the total documents in the database, 231,000 and change. Up above here, you have how many sets out of the entire collection there are. Up here, you can see how the page is actually organized. There are 25 items listed per page. You can change that number. You can also go to the various sets out of the 231,000. You can navigate through the sets. So each set would be, in this case, 25 documents. So we've got folder organization on the left. We've got document view and document metadata taking the middle of the page. We've got a search term bar up at the top here. Notice we have a DT search index in place, and you can do Google style searching by accessing or inputting your terms into the search box. It supports Boolean searching, connector. It supports phrase searching, putting your terms within double quotes to handle exact phrase matching. You can put together more complex searches over on the left here. You can put together more complex searches over on the left here. This is something that we will revisit later. So I consider this the front side of the application, and then the other side is drilling down into document details. We'll just go into the first document here. You can click on the document by clicking on the control number here, and it will take you to the viewer. So again, this is one of my favorite things about Relativity. They just keep it simple. On the front, we've got kind of the more global view. On the back, we have the more document-centric view. At the left here, the large pane, you can look at your document in various modes. The most common one by far is the viewer. And this is another reason what has made Relativity so popular is the strength of this viewer. It allows you to see all different sorts of file types, Excel spreadsheets, PDFs, PowerPoint. There's a wide variety of file types that are supported by the viewer, and it allows you to not have to switch from app to app to effectively look or review documents that have been loaded into the database. The other big advantage of native review is that it cuts down on costs. Yes, there are processing costs associated with document review, but when you're able to look at the document set in native format, it drastically cuts down on the cost of the review. There are other modes, and we'll take a closer look at this later. You can look in the native app. If there are images associated with a document, you can do so. You can view extracted text. This would be the plain text view, and then this drop down is associated with any productions that might have been made from the document. Over to the right, we have what's called a coding layout. So typically we use a first pass review style layout. So in a first pass review, for example, we're often just determining whether this document is responsive to any of the requests put forth by the requesting party. So often it's just a simple responsive call. In order to edit these, you just click on the edit button. It activates the edit mode of the viewer, so you can put in notes, view any metadata that is included, and then perhaps most importantly, you can add, reviewers could add any responsive designations that the review administrator has set up. Notice we have privilege designations, we've got questions that can be available. These are a new part of Relativity, but this is probably the heart and soul of a first pass review, is something responsiveness, privilege, perhaps some confidentiality. And these can all be, again, customized. They can be reordered. Centurion helps you put together your coding panels before you start the review, so you're off and running and in good shape. Okay, so let's go back out to the document set. Let's talk a little bit about table views. So this is considered a table view. Obviously, it's a table. But what's important here is that, okay, let's talk a little bit about table views. Table views are essentially collections of displayed fields or displayed records in a particular view. So this is called a view, this grid format. There are various views already set up. If you use this drop-down list right here, you can notice there's all sorts of different configurations, all different looks. And this tends to be these column collections, but you can also actually sort by record as well. You can embed sorts or filters into these views. So for example, we could look at a privilege log view of the same records. It would have the number, maybe an email, to or from, subject, sent, and the privilege designation. Most databases have a standard view with a standard collection of metadata or coding fields. So before going on to batches, which is typically where a lot of reviewers spend their time, is checking out various review batches, performing a review, checking in a batch, and then picking up other batches. But before we do that, let's talk over a few essentials to working with these views. These will come into play when working with batches as well. So the first thing is, let's look at the folder concept one more time. As you open these folders, you can actually determine the scope of the documents that you see on the table. For example, if we go to our custodians folder and we open this up and we click on John Arnold and email, we're only going to see emails that are in this folder or in the subsequent subfolders. Notice if you look on our lower right, our very lower right, we only have roughly 4,900 documents instead of the original 200. When you click on the top level folder, you should be seeing all documents in all subfolders. This is actually a setting. By default, you do see items in subfolders. If you click on this little black drop-down arrow, you'll see this folder and subfolders. You can change the scope so that you only see items that are in a particular folder. This can be useful for most purposes, however, you want to make sure that this is selected. With any set as well, you can also perform sorts on the various fields displayed. So the most common one is a sort on control number, and usually this is done by default, but you just click on the field name, control number, and notice you can sort by ascending or by descending order, like so. So this is sorted by descending order. We see our Z control numbers. This can also be done by custodian. You can sort by custodians. So another helpful piece, and one of the most common functions that you'll use in the database, is to perform filtering functions on the various fields. So to turn on filtering, you go to the little funnel here at the top of the table. You click that, it goes gold. And then let's say you just want to see the ZH series of documents. You could put in a ZH, and notice you just get the items with the ZH prefix. You'll also notice in the lower left, in our search center, you can see that there's been a filter applied to the set. So you can clear these here. You can also clear filters up here by canceling the filter. Sometimes it's helpful to do multiple filters. So let's say I'm going to search or filter on Andrew Saja, and let's say I only want items with Kate Cura in the subject. So you can perform multiple sorts. And notice again in the search center off to the left, now you've got two criteria: custodians like this and subject like this. Like I mentioned, typically reviewers are instructed to pick up review batches, and that's kind of the baseline review mechanism for a certainly first pass. Batches are found up on the top here, and by clicking on batching, and notice you can see a series of review batches. These are set up by the administrator, and they're typically organized by 100 or 200 document sets. So let's expand our list a little bit here so we can see more. So these are a little unusual. These are a little small. This is pretty typical here. 300 documents in a batch. Notice that these aren't reviewed. To pick up a batch or take responsibility for a batch, you could go here, and let's say I wanted some of these man UCLA sets. I could go over to edit, and check it out to me, like so. I'm not going to do this. And notice that's now checked out to me. The status is in progress. The review administrator would know that, okay, Frank's working on this set of 100. So how do I find these in my document set? Very important question. You go back to documents up here. And remember, we just talked about the idea of, views and the way that these can be filtered. And this concept comes into play with the idea of batching. So what you can do is use this drop down and notice this little section. You can actually filter on your set of batch documents. So I'm going to go to my checked out documents like so, and notice my man set here. There should be 100. Yep, I look down to the right. So now that we've got our batch displayed, we can start reviewing. So you'd go to the first document here, and this is where it's important to be in touch with your review administrator. There should be a review protocol put in place, or at very least some general instructions about the course of the review. Like I mentioned, most reviews are in viewer mode. This is the most inexpensive way. Rather than imaging your whole set, you just use the native reviewer and proceed through your documents viewing items in native format. So the other item too is that you will be instructed which coding panel to use. So let's say we've been instructed to use our first pass review here, and typically what I'll do is I'll go right into edit mode and we'll start our review. We'll look at this, and presumably we've been instructed on what we're looking for, and this is going to be not responsive, and I'll do save and next. Go to my next one. Oh, this is very important. This is a hot doc. I'll go ahead and click that, save and next, and we'll go and proceed through our batch like so. So one thing I will recommend, it's often a good idea to pick up a few keyboard shortcuts. Let's say I make this responsive. Instead of going up here to click, I could do Alt page down and then hit enter. Okay. Alt R is often associated with responsive. I don't know if you saw that, but Alt R, check out my responsive designation. Alt R toggles it on and off, and then I can do Alt page down and hit OK. Again, I'm just doing that with the keyboard. So you can actually set up keyboard shortcuts and associate them with different values. Then notice, it depends on the scope of the review. Oftentimes, items such as privilege could be dealt with in a first pass review. It just kind of depends on how your review is set up. If you'd like to learn more about keyboard shortcuts, Relativity has embedded a helpful link up at the top here, Keyboard Shortcuts Legend. Let's face it, if you're going to go through hundreds or thousands of documents, it's helpful to have some keyboard shortcuts on hand. It really saves a lot of time instead of relying primarily on the mouse. So another key piece here, I probably should have mentioned this earlier. If you're going to be doing a fair amount of document review, either have a large monitor, or probably even better, have a dual monitor set up. And Relativity is set up so that it can easily accommodate two monitors. You can undock the viewer at this point. If you go up to the upper right again, you can undock the viewer, and then you could send this to another monitor. So I've got this over at my other monitor, and then what's nice is you can actually adjust this so that you can actually see the documents as well. So you could have your list over here, your coding panel over here, your review panel on your your document viewer on your second monitor. A lot of document reviewers like this setup. This is their primary setup. They like to see the list as well. Okay, so once we're done there, let's take a peek at a couple of other important functions as well. Brought back the viewer pane, obviously. Oftentimes you want to search for particular terms in the document. There is within document searching as well. For example, if I wanted to find the term route in this document, notice it would highlight an instance of route. Let's say this were a longer document, say a PDF with several dozen instances of my term. You can actually navigate from term to term. You can also see how many hits there are with a particular search. If you click on this little A, a couple items come up. If there are any persistent highlighting applied, and these are search terms in the background that are automatically highlighted for you. This is often done for privilege terms. That way, it creates a visual cue. It creates a visual clue that there's potentially a privileged item or a privileged term within a document. It just kind of highlights it for reviewers, making sure that they catch that in the document. So sometimes it's nice, either with searching for, when you're using a keyword search set or persistent highlights, you can actually see instances of those items. You can see how many instances of those terms are found in a particular document by referring to this pane. Another helpful function is emailing a link to the document. Let's say you've stumbled on something that's just fantastic that you want to get out to the review team as quick as possible. If you go to the upper right here, you can email a link to the document. It will fire up your default mail client and send an email. I'm not going to do that, but if you've got an email client hooked up, it integrates with that and fires up a link. They will need access to Relativity in order to click on the link, and it'll actually take them to the document in the database. Another useful technique is actually emailing a copy of the native file. So by using the native feature of the document viewer, you can click on native and it will actually download a copy of whatever file type you're currently reviewing. You can click on this, show in folder, and you can grab this native file and attach it to an email or send it by whatever means you want to. That is a good option sometimes as well. All right, let's move on to some more topics. Let's talk about printing. Printing comes in two different modes. First off, if you're just using the viewer, you can use the print to PDF option, and essentially it launches a built-in PDF printer and converts the native document to a PDF, which you'll see here in just a second, and then you can use normal print options from the PDF viewer. It's really the same process with images. Tends to be less problematic since the image conversion to PDF is nearly always 100% accurate. Sometimes you will find issues going from the viewer to PDF. It's a file conversion. The other thing with an image is you can also print off highlights, which we're going to get into shortly, redactions, annotations, any additional pieces that you add to an image. Sometimes this is desirable, but it's a similar process. You click on this PDF to printer. This is a little confusing sometimes, the image selection. When they talk about all images, they just mean all the pages, all the images associated with this particular document. You can also get down to a page range, and you can also make the resulting PDF searchable. You can include highlights and redactions. If you'd like an identifying slip sheet, perhaps with a document identifier or a field, say like file name, you can add that as well to better mark the document. Okay, I'm not going to go through this process, but it basically creates a PDF, and then you can print it to paper if you wish, using your traditional workflow. Okay, imaging documents. You can image limited sets, essentially one at a time, but sometimes if you run into a document where you know you're going to create a redaction, or you'd just like to create the redaction right away, this is a helpful option. I'm going to delete this image so we can demonstrate the TIFF on the fly option. And your imaging settings will be here. This is just a demo database, so there aren't a lot of profiles built in. But you go to this icon right here, click that, and it will build you essentially a TIFF for JPEG set of images for this document. What's nice about this is then you can go forward, as I mentioned, and employ some of the markups associated with images. So once you have your image, you have several more tools available to you. Let's first look at highlighting, which is right here. You utilize this drop down and you can pick color you wish, and it's just a left click and drag option like so. If you want to edit these, it's just real easy. You just grab one of these portions and you can resize. You can hit the delete button and delete the markup, redraw it somewhere else, like so, move it around. Very easy. These are actually redactions with text. So a standard redaction in black, choose this option, and let's say we were going to redact this section right here. And similar rules as the highlights. You can resize, you can move, I'm just left clicking and dragging, and you can delete. You can also use the text option. There's also a white option. This wasn't previously available. Some people like this. It just kind of eliminates the content altogether. And then obviously you can print with redactions, so you could print a copy with redactions in place or highlights in place. The text version works like so. And if you want to edit the text, just right click and edit, and you can adjust the text as you like. There's also full page and multi-page redaction options. So if you just want to redact the full page, you can go like so. This is just a single page. Next page is unredacted. Or you can use this mass redact, which will redact every page. Or you can even specify a page range if you wish. And again, if you decide you want to delete these, just select and delete, and you're right back to your former setup. All right, now that we've covered redactions and printing and highlights, let's move on to another subject, document searching. So we'll go out to the main table. First thing I want to do when I'm searching my document set is I want to make sure that I set the scope correctly. And this is done over to the left. So I want to make sure and click the top level folder. Once you've established your scope, then you can address full database searching. And this is done up here at the top. It's a Google style search. I tend to, not every database has a DT search index, but I feel that's the better index if it's available. The standard default is keyword search, and it's a basic package with every Relativity database. I've found that each index is roughly equal as far as accuracy and the types of results that you get. I'd say the biggest advantage with the DT search index are the expanded range of operators. So this is an Enron style database, sample database, so I'll do a search for natural gas. Anytime you have a phrase, enclose it in double quotes, and notice we get results of 2277. I'm in the lower right corner here. 2277 results of terms having natural gas. So to find your search results, you click on the first document in the set. Brings you back to the document viewer. And to find search terms, I recommend going to the viewer. When you are in image mode, it will not highlight search results since it is an image. So if you go to the viewer, for example, notice it will load. You turn on your search results list, your highlight pane. Notice it will highlight how many items that conform to your search. And we can search through here. These will be highlighted in yellow. You can also put these terms up here, and it will navigate to each instance of the term. We know that there are 4. Sometimes rather than scrolling through, if it's a particularly long document, it's easier just to navigate search hit by search hit using this pane. Another item to be aware of is the drop down up at the top here. You can specify to add certain relations to the search results. In this example, we could use family, and it would bring up all the family members associated with the natural gas hits. So it'd be any emails or attachments that were related to natural gas. What's also interesting is, especially when you want to do some culling, or maybe you want to code all examples of a hit, you can use the email thread and just code as responsive, for example, the master email in an email thread, or you could screen out all the duplicates. I prefer to have no related items, and what I do is I turn on the family pane in the document viewer. I go here, turn on the family pane, and it will denote any other members of the family. I prefer this style. I'd rather just have my search results in the table and not cluttered with other voluminous attachments trying to find my search terms that might not exist in every item. So I want just hits, and then I can go back to the document viewer and refer to the family pane to see other pieces related to documents with hits. And then, of course, we also have Boolean connectors, so I could narrow this down. Let's say I want to narrow it down to Andrea Ring, like so. Notice here I only get 4 hits. I can go in, here's my natural gas, and I'm sure Andrea Ring. So notice Andrea Ring is not highlighted, but she is listed here in the to listing of email addressees. Remember, I also mentioned with the DT search index, you also get access to proximity operators. So you could use something like this. This would be natural gas within 5 of, let's use drilling as an example. Natural gas would only be a hit if it is in close proximity to the term drilling. Let's go ahead and check these results as well. Here we have our examples there. These tend to be pretty isolated. Oftentimes you're looking for very specific relationships, so there are not going to be a lot of examples of these, probably just one here. Yep, there we go. So, very cursory overview of keyword searching. Realize you can also search subsets of the document collection by just changing the scope on the left. Let's say there's a particular custodian that you want to search. John Arnold, for example. You could search a smaller subset. So another notion of searching that we should consider is field filtering. So to clear your search here, let's start with a clean slate. We'll just go up here. The field filtering is a really powerful feature. It's one of my favorite features, Relativity. It makes it really easy to narrow down collections. Sometimes it's a more effective technique than just keyword searching. You can take any fragment from any field and narrow that down. Like so. You can get into dates. There's a date picker. You can do before or between or dates after a certain range. This is really a powerful tool. You can filter on coding designations. Just quickly find, for example, maybe all responsive and second review needed. Like so. So you can actually search for multiple examples. You can also do then a filter on these if you want to see, but that's a possibility. It's just a sort by ascending and descending. Another technique I find useful is there is a between operator for the control number. So I could go EN 000-001. So let's say I wanted to go EN, maybe I just want all the 3000s. So I could go 3000 between EN 4000. Like so. Again, great technique to isolate subsets using metadata or coded data. Powerful techniques. And then the last topic we'll take a look at will be to examine some of the advanced search features. These are handy for if you want maybe a combination of keyword searches and field searches, or sometimes the filter approach just doesn't have quite enough flexibility to get what you're looking for. So let's clear our filters, clear our searches, and this occurs, advanced searching occurs down in this search center. So let's do an issue search where we want to pluck out a series of issues. We scroll down to the issues field, and it brings up a dialog where we can first choose our operator. This is nice. You can choose from a variety of options. Let's say you want to find all the items in a particular folder, for example, that were not set, or you want a series of issues. So let's say Alex review, board of directors, hot, claims, and click apply. And then just run search, and we get a series of items that conform to those issue codes. And you can keep building on these. You can add conditions, you can have date restrictions, you can use text searching. There's an extracted text field, so you can actually build full text searches into this mix. So again, it just gives you the ability to combine several different criteria as opposed to just straight keyword search or leaning on the filters. I know that's a whirlwind tour of Relativity, but hopefully it gets you comfortable with the app, get you up and running with your review. And as always, if you want to dig deeper on any subject, or you're finding that you suspect there's a way to do something and you just can't figure it out, please contact Centurion Discovery. We offer free training, free consultation. If you're hosting documents with us, we want to make sure your review is going smoothly and we minimize frustration. We've got a lot of talented people on staff, and we can almost always solve your problem. So don't hesitate to reach out, and good luck with your review.